The single-dad CEO brought his triplet daughters, and the young nurse stayed.
So, my best friend sets me up on a blind date. She describes the guy as incredibly charming and successful, which is her not-so-subtle code for, "He's rich, Chloe, so please don't wear your faded nursing clogs." For the record, I didn't. I spent a solid hour trying to look like I had my life together, all for a man I'd never even met. I was picturing a quiet, maybe slightly awkward dinner over a glass of wine that costs more than my shoes. What I was not picturing was my date showing up with his 3 identical daughters. The doorbell rang, and my perfectly practiced charming smile just froze. There he stood, impossibly handsome, with a look of pure panic in his eyes and a small, sticky hand clutching each of his. And behind his leg, a third little girl peeking out at me. My blind date had arrived, and he'd brought a whole kindergarten class with him. "I'm so sorry," the man, Alex, my brain finally supplied, said in a rushed whisper. My babysitter canceled. 20 minutes ago. An emergency. I swear I was about to call you, but then Lily, Poppy, and Rose here threatened a full-on mutiny if we didn't get out of the house. I should have just canceled. We can reschedule. I totally get it." He looked genuinely mortified. Nothing like the powerful CEO my friend had described. He just looked like a dad on the brink of surrender. The 3 girls, who all looked about 5, chose that exact moment to make a break for it. One sprinted towards my cat, who hissed and teleported under the sofa. Another started poking at the glass ornaments on my bookshelf. And the third just planted herself in the middle of the room and announced, "I need juice." My quiet, pristine apartment turned into a disaster zone in less than 30 seconds. Look, I could have shut the door. I could have taken his offer to reschedule and spent my evening in quiet, blissful peace. But then I looked at his exhausted, apologetic face and at the 3 little whirlwinds of chaos, and something in me just softened. As a pediatric nurse, chaos is pretty much my native language, so it's okay, I said, surprised that I actually meant it. But I don't think that fancy French place you booked is going to appreciate our entourage. Relief washed over Alex's face. "Pizza in the park?" he asked, his voice full of hope. And that's how our first date became 3 large pepperoni pizzas on a picnic blanket, with me in a nice dress and him in a designer suit. It was messy. It was loud. Poppy decided my hair needed more grass in it. Lily wanted to know if I could do a cartwheel. I couldn't. And Rose, after being suspiciously quiet, spilt an entire cup of soda right down the front of Alex's very expensive-looking shirt. He didn't even flinch. He just laughed, this deep, genuine sound that made my stomach do a little flip. One point, Lily tripped chasing a pigeon and scraped her knee. Before Alex could even move, my nurse instincts just took over. I had a mini first aid kit in my purse, and I was cleaning the cut and sticking on a cartoon bandage while telling her a dumb story to distract her. She stopped crying almost instantly. When I looked up, Alex was just staring at me. It wasn't the look of a man on a date. It was this quiet awe and gratitude. In that moment, surrounded by pizza crusts and giggling kids, I felt more connected to him than I ever would have over a fancy dinner. He wasn't just a billionaire, he was a dad, and he was trying his best. The next day, Alex called. He started with another apology, but it quickly turned into him thanking me. "Honestly, I think you're some kind of wizard," he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "The girls won't stop talking about the pretty nurse Chloe. I was wondering if you'd be willing to risk a second date. Just us this time, promise." I said yes, and this time I got the full billionaire experience. He picked me up in a car that probably cost more than my apartment and took me to a restaurant where the waiters whispered. It was a lot. People recognized him, their eyes following us to our private table. This was his world, a universe of power and influence that felt a million miles away from my life of 12-hour hospital shifts. He talked about his tech company and the insane pressure that came with it. But then I talked about my work. I told him about the kids on my ward, the little wins, the hard days, and the fulfillment I get from it. He just listened, his eyes never leaving mine, seeming genuinely fascinated by a life that didn't revolve around stock prices. It was clear he was drawn to something real, something grounded. We started seeing each other regularly. There were more fancy dates, but there were also simple walks and quiet coffees. We'd text all day and talk on the phone every night. It was so easy, but I couldn't shake this nagging insecurity. One afternoon, I walked past a cafe and saw him through the window, sitting with this absolutely stunning woman. They were laughing, and she touched his arm in that easy, familiar way. My heart just sank. Of course, this was the reality. I was a fun diversion, a break from his real life with women who actually belonged in his world. That night on the phone, I was quiet, and he knew right away. "What's wrong, Chloe?" I tried to play it off, but he wouldn't let it go. Finally, I just told him what I saw. There was a pause, and then he sighed. "That was my sister," he said softly. "She flew in for a surprise visit. Chloe, you have to know, there is no one else." He then told me how he'd shut himself off after his wife passed away years ago, focusing only on his work and the girls. He admitted that letting someone new in was terrifying for him. That conversation changed everything. It wasn't some big drama, just a simple misunderstanding that opened a door to real honesty between us.
Before we continue with the story, if you're enjoying this journey, please take a moment to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps us create more stories for you every week. A few weeks later, Alex asked me something that felt way more serious than any fancy date. "The girls miss you," he said. "They want to know when the fun nurse is coming back to play. Would you be open to spending a Sunday with us at the house?" I was so nervous. This wasn't an accident anymore. It was a deliberate invitation. It felt like an audition for the role of potential stepmom. When I showed up at his house, which was less a house and more a modern mansion, the girls swarmed me at the door with hugs. The day was a happy, chaotic blur. We baked cookies that resulted in more flour on us than in the cookies. We built a massive pillow fort in the living room, and I read them the same storybook 3 times in a row, doing a different voice for each character. I watched Alex with them, and here he wasn't a CEO. He was just Daddy. He was right there on the floor with us, getting covered in glitter and pretending to be a monster. I saw this tender, loving side of him that made my heart ache in the best way. Later, while we were attempting to clean up the glitter explosion, Poppy tugged on my shirt. "I'm glad you're here," she said, with all the seriousness a 5-year-old can muster. "Daddy smiles more when you're here." I glanced over at Alex, who'd heard her. He had this look on his face I couldn't quite place, a mix of surprise and raw emotion. I think in that moment he saw it too. I wasn't just some woman he was dating. I was starting to fit into the cracks of their lives, and instead of causing a disruption, I was bringing in a little light. I was becoming part of their healing, and they were becoming part of mine. The thought didn't scare me. It felt like coming home. The real turning point came a month later, on a cold and rainy night. I got a frantic call from Alex just as I was leaving my shift. Rose had a high fever, and it was getting worse. He sounded genuinely scared. "Can you please come? I don't know what to do. She feels so hot." I drove straight there, my brain switching from date mode to nurse mode. I found him pacing, holding a whimpering Rose. I calmly assessed her, checked her vitals, and recognized the symptoms of a nasty flu bug that was going around. I talked him through everything, what to do, what to watch for, and how to keep her comfortable, reassuring him she would be okay. I stayed all night. We sat by her bedside together, taking turns sponging her forehead and trying to get her to drink water. We barely spoke, but in the shared silence of that long, worried night, a deep bond formed. He saw me not as a date, but as a partner. Strong, capable, and calm. I saw him not as a billionaire, but as a terrified father who loved his daughter more than anything. By morning, her fever had broken. She was weak, but she was smiling. Alex looked at me, his eyes full of exhaustion and just overwhelming emotion. "Thank you, Chloe," he whispered, his voice thick. Later that day, after the other two were at school and Rose was sleeping, he took my hands. "Last night," he started, his voice serious. "Watching you with her, I realized something. My life is chaos. It's messy, and it comes with 3 little tornadoes. I've been so afraid to let anyone into that chaos because I thought it would be too much." He took a deep breath. "But you don't just handle the chaos. You make it better. You make us better. I'm not just falling for you, Chloe. I'm in love with you, and I can't imagine my life or my daughter's lives without you in it." It wasn't a grand, dramatic confession. It was quiet, it was real, and it was absolutely everything. So no, my blind date with a billionaire wasn't the quiet, romantic dinner I expected. It was loud, messy, and came with 3 tiny, very active chaperones. But it was also the beginning of everything. I showed up for a date and found a family. I learned that the greatest luxuries aren't fancy restaurants or expensive cars. They're pillow forts, baking disasters, and the feeling of a small hand slipping into yours. I didn't just fall in love with a brilliant, successful man. I fell in love with a kind, devoted father and his 3 incredible daughters. Our beginning was an accident, but our future, that we were building on purpose, one chaotic, beautiful day at a time.